Good morning. This is Ron Brown again. It is January 7th in the morning. I'm going to do a quick short market report. Here's my risk disclaimer. Of course, any stock index or ETF mentioned in this presentation is not a recommendation to buy or sell. All trading strategies are used at your own risk. Of course, everybody has their own opinion on the market, but I'm going to just see what HGSI is telling us. First of all, I want to point out some things on my global index options. I use market value weighted relative start date of 104 weeks ago or 2 years, and I use the internal default filter. Last close greater than or equal to $5. No volume is considered. I just point this out in case you're doing yours and you're comparing yours to mine. Let's go into the designer. I'm going to go into my market analysis user groups. I'm going to begin here. I'll go to the major markets plus. I'll start with the NASDAQ like I usually do. I'll click on the quick pick. I'll go up to my top-down process views for market analysis. Click on top-down analysis major markets, and it limits it to these indexes. Now, I'll start with the NASDAQ composite like I normally do. Now I have to change my charts. I'm going to market charts and NASDAQ internals for use with the NASDAQ. Make this full screen. You can see yesterday that there was a volume pocket pivot represented by the blue bar. It gapped open and then traded down and then reversed. By the end of the trading day, we didn't quite get back to the high of Tuesday morning, but it was a trend day. Once it reversed, there was no stopping it. If you look over here to the left, you'll see that it was up 2.6% for the day, closed at 89.72% of its daily range. The accumulation started to turn up here, but it's still down in the D area. You know, it's a one-day event so far. I'm going to do an alternate W to change this to a weekly chart, and then I will zoom in. Whoops, I went too far. And you can see that there was a test and then a confirmation of that test yesterday. And we did have a positive weekly close because this close is higher, obviously, than the prior week. I'm going to go back to daily, and then I'm going to drop down to the next chart. This is a comparison of the NASDAQ to the S&P 500. And you can see yesterday that this turned up. So that means that the NASDAQ was stronger yesterday than the S&P 500. I'm going to go down one more chart, and on this chart what I've done is I have replaced the ARMS index, which I find pretty useless most of the time, with the advancing versus declining line. And I'm going to go down one more to 2, and this is the new highs versus the new lows. Not much difference yesterday, but you can see the new lows are way down from where they were. Here is the fan. The fan is still in a downtrend even after yesterday's big day. And then here is that advanced decline line where we can see it much clearer, and you can see that on the composite the advancers have overtaken the decliners, and it is now trending up. So what do we know so far? The market's still obviously in a strong downtrend. On the weekly chart, there was a positive weekly gain, but there's still a ton of overhead resistance. Yesterday was on a decent volume, and the market is still not trending. For this daily trend to turn into an uptrend, it's going to have to surpass the high of this high right here. I'll put a crosshair on here. You can see that it has a ways to go, and then what would be nice if it would surpass that and stall a little bit, form a higher low, and then take off. But we're a long way from trending. Yesterday was just a one-day event, in my opinion. But there is some upward momentum, and you can see that here in the advanced decline line. Now let's quickly drop down to Ian's multiple indicator chart for the NASDAQ, and you can see that there was no eureka yesterday, and the Bongo Weekly is still negative. So once again, we're going to have to see more for this to become an uptrend. So far, I have just talked about the NASDAQ. I'm going to get this chart down here. Now let's do this. I'm going to click on the ranking module and see it's set on percent change 1 week. And you can see that the stocks, money poured into the stocks, and then the transports. And looking at these major indexes, the NASDAQ 100 was the weakest based upon a percent change. If I change this to compared to the S&P over a 1 week period, you can see that the Bitcoin Investment Trust outperformed the S&P by 2.82%. The stocks outperformed by 2.59%, transports by 2.11%, and so on. As you go down here to the S&P 500, it's 100. That's the base. So anything above this outperformed the S&P, and anything below it underperformed. And even though there was a big day yesterday in the NASDAQ over a week's time period, it underperformed. The NASDAQ underperformed the S&P, and the NASDAQ 100 also underperformed the S&P. Now let's go at this from a little different perspective. I'm going to go back in here into my market analysis user groups. This time I'm going to go down to the major indexes, industries, and sectors. I'm going to click through to the warehouse, and now I'm going to move down to the folder which says top-down scorecard views for HGSI analysis. I'm going to go to number 3, demand supply, advancers divided by decliners. Sorting on raw combos, you can see advancers compared to decliners, all advancers in the industrials and the stocks, and then the S&P 500 had strong numbers. And I put these two columns in this week, the percent advancing and the percent declining. And you can see that in some of these indexes on Friday, there were 100% advancers compared to decliners. Now I'm going to leave the same view here, and I'm going to drop down to the HGSI industries just below in folder number 5, and you can see that there were several industries yesterday. Some of these don't have very few stocks in them, but several of them that were up 100% advancers and 0 decliners. In fact, it goes all the way down to number 60. Everything above this number 60 had every stock within the industry group up for the day. Let's go down to the other end, or I'll just reverse this and go down here to the bottom, and there's a few groups down here which had 50% of the stocks up and so on. But that's just a quick read to see where the strength was based upon these columns right here, in addition to using the advancing versus declining column. Okay, I want to go back to this right here, and I'm going to click through to the warehouse, and now I'm going to look at the S&P 1500, and I'm going to go to some other charts. I'm going to go into my HGSI index charts, and let's just look at the S&P 1500 through this lens. And this is accumulation versus distribution. A's and B's are green, and A is green, E is red. These are A's and B's here, and D's and E's. You can see there's accumulation coming into the S&P 1500. If I drop down to the next one, this just shows the rotation of the accumulation. I don't know how useful that is. It's been there for so long. I just leave it in. Now you can see that accumulation has gone from D to C, and there's this bar here which is a buy bar and accumulation along with the effort to rise and a pocket pivot. So this is using the indexes. We're getting buy signals on here. Going down to the next one, you can see the advanced decline line. If you look over here, you can see advancing issues versus declining issues. Remember, I only do stocks $5 and above, and there's several stocks that are under $5, so that's why these numbers don't quite add up. And also, I don't have the unchanged in here, but you can see that there is some accumulation on the AD line. Dropping down to the next one, the percent of the stocks above the 20-day, 30-day, 50-day, and 200-day moving averages. These all moved up, so we're seeing accumulation there. Potential buy-sell signals, more than 5-to-1 on the advancers versus the decliners, consequently a dark green bar. Same thing on the volume. Both force indexes turned up. The VPOC turned up clear back here, and we got a green buy signal on the indexes. Remember, these are indexes that are created by HGSI, market cap weighted. Now here's the same thing. I just took the moving averages out of this one. Here's another chart, AD line, once again in the percent above the 50, just a closer view of this. And then chart number 8 gives me all of the internals up here. You can see the percentage of advancing over declining numbers and so on. You can do this and look at these yourself. Just more confirmation. Here is the force indexes. 13-day force has been negative since back here, been getting better, and then yesterday it popped over the zero. This is the 2-day force, which is erratic. You can see it jumps back and forth, but here it's smoothed out over 13 days, and it too is giving a buy with a pocket pivot. Now these are the internals. Here's the McClellan index. You can see that we were starting to get some improvements in the advanced decline line after this point right back here, and it's getting stronger. And this number up here shows the advancers versus the decliners were 14.4 to 1 in this index. So strong move yesterday. And then finally in this chart, this is an accumulation chart again. Essentially what I showed earlier, but there's your buy signal again and the move from D to E. So, it looks pretty positive. But until we start seeing the actual trends, higher highs and higher lows, this is not a trending market. It's a one-day buy so far. And remember, this is the S&P 1500, so it's a broader look at the market. Now, I don't want this video to get long because people lose interest. I lose interest. And but I do want to touch upon Thinkorswim. Now, here's the NASDAQ. There's no volume in Thinkorswim for the NASDAQ, but notice the high here didn't quite surpass the high on Tuesday. Monday was a holiday, of course. So once again, like I said, we're going to need to see some higher highs and higher lows before we see a trend. Yesterday was a rush into the market on what was perceived as good news because wage inflation hadn't gone up as much. And the shorts got squeezed, and now everybody's, well, not everybody, but a lot of people were trying to buy the bottom, and there is some accumulation. I'll go into that some other time in other videos. But I do want to point out before I leave that those of you who have watched the videos on bringing the user groups and user smart groups into Thinkorswim from HGSI. I want to take a look at some of these. Now this is a percent daily range from yesterday. I haven't changed these today, but this brings stocks up during the day, which are potential trades, and it works pretty well. Look at these stocks. Now they weren't all up, of course. Let's go down to the next one. Stocks and groups moving up. This is from Thursday, and you can see that these stocks continued to move up. Stocks and groups moving up $1 to $15. Notice these all closed at 100% of their daily range. Now there's a buyout. These will come out of the database automatically, but there's plenty of opportunity here just by looking at these smart groups. I'm not going to go through all of these because I don't want to take the time. You can do that on your own. I'm just pointing out that there are all kinds of opportunities. Also, at the suggestion of one of the users who didn't like the colors in the VPI charts, I took the colors out and I made this grid without any moving averages and so on. I'm going to just go back to the grid. There's a 4-chart grid here, which has a weekly chart, a daily chart, a 78-minute chart, and a 5-minute chart. On the 5-minute, this is a 5-day, but during the week, I'll just use it on a 1-day. But I'm sharing this with you. I'm going to go back here. This shared basic chart is right here. This one does not have any moving averages or anything. So just, you can bring it into Thinkorswim. What I like about this is there are no distractions on the moving averages, and we just get pure price action along with VPA flags and the volume bars, so you can tell how much interest there is in a stock based upon various time frames. We can do the weekly and the daily in HGSI, but we can't do the shorter time frames. That's why I like to bring these watch lists into Thinkorswim and trade off of that, or certainly prospect off of it. Now there's a lot more I could show you, but like I said, I don't want this video to be lengthy, so I'm going to end it here. Thanks for listening. I'll get more and more into the interaction and the compatibility and use of HGSI with Thinkorswim as I go forward this year.